what are your thoughts when you visit DC now?
So it's interesting because every time I land, it's all nostalgia where, that's where I met you. That's where we fell in love. That's where we got engaged.
You fell in love first.
There. What?
You fell in love first.
I definitely fell in love first.
I'm a strong man.
Yes.
Strong man.
Yes.
All the ladies fall for me. Nobody has to know that's all fake.
Definitely head over heels. So there's all this nostalgia of, our wonderful life together, our career at CIA, our friends there. It was really such a great experience, which, to be honest, was a life before we had children also. So I always have to remind myself that our life there, had we stayed there with children, would have looked very differently. But for me, it's all this, it's all these wonderful memories. And then on the ride from the airport to our friend's house, I hit traffic. And it is so horrible. I mean, it was bad before, but the traffic is just increasing. And then I think to myself, why do they keep increasing the government presence in this one location?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, population density and sustainability for that area, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Second, quality of life for the workers.
Versus cost of living.
Right, cost of living. I mean, think about the quality of life for the people, for the civil servants working for the government.
I think we did some research while we were there. Cost of living in Washington, D.C. right now is 50% more than cost of living in another major metropolis, Denver.
Yeah, so Falls Church, Virginia, which is like a small neighborhood in that Northern Virginia area, in that D.C. metro area, was 40% more than cost of living in Denver.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I thought it was incredible. And then, the second, I've always said this, is security. I mean, you have all of your important government offices there. It just takes one attack in one location. Why wouldn't we diversify the locations of our offices? We don't have to be that close. We don't have to have all of your personnel in that city.
And when you say attack, I think the conventional thought that goes through most people's mind is a nuke or cluster bombs or something in one area. But what you and I know is that there are many far worse attacks.
Yeah.
You could attack the water source.
Yeah.
And the water source is shared by the entire Washington, D.C. metro area.
Power grid,
all shared, right? You could attack any number of institutions in that area, right? You could put bad medicine onto shelves. You could compromise cybersecurity. There's all sorts of attacks that will still infiltrate and affect the entire population dense area.
Yeah.
It's not just a nuke that comes from the sky and we're going to shoot it down. There's scarier things out there than bombs that go boom, right? But I completely agree. My relationship with Washington, D.C. is not that different from yours. There's a lot of nostalgia there. But there's also, I mean, I'm coming from a military background. I know you don't have a military background yourself. I can't help but feel frustration when I go to Washington, D.C. Like, it's such a beautiful place. It's such a paradox.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's historical. It's white marble. It's like timeless. It shows the strength of America. But it's also a facade. It's not real, right? It's a giant propaganda city, right? This idea that America's best, America first, America makes no mistakes, America's the strongest, America's, the savior of the world. That's the message of Washington, D.C. Every monument you walk through is bigger than life. Polished marble, polished bronze, polished granite. It's the highlights. It's the Instagram of a president's term.
Yeah, which has its place.
It's got its place.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's not forget that we made some massive mistakes in the history of our country, right? FDR is a fantastic example of one of those beautiful monuments. But he was president for 4 terms.
Yeah.
People don't even realize we had a 4-term president.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's wild. He was a president for such a long period of time. And he was handicapped, and they hid his handicap from the American people.
Yeah.
Because they were afraid that if the American people thought their president was ill or handicapped, he would be judged as not qualified for the job, right?
Yeah,
so it wasn't until like 2007 or something that his monument displayed his wheelchair. I mean, it's insane. It's just wild to think about the evolution of our country over time. So when I go to Washington, D.C., I have those conflicting emotions where I'm very proud of my country. I'm very proud to be an American. But at the same time, as a 43-year-old father of 2 now, I realize there's a narrative there. Yeah. And I was absolutely the person who, when I got recruited by CIA, as soon as I landed in D.C., babe, I don't know about you, I pulled out my little pocket cell phone.
Yeah.
And I drove with one hand, and I was taking pictures of the buildings with the other hand. I was like, I'm so excited to be here. Right?
Well, we both know I'm a safer driver than you are, so I actually took the time out to properly go to the monuments on my feet. But something you're saying there that's interesting is, and we've talked about this too, is it's a bit of a fishbowl. So you go there, and almost everybody you meet, I mean,
they care about your politics first.
Right. Almost everybody you meet has some kind of foot in government, whether they're private sector or public sector. They have some kind of foot in politics and geopolitics. That's the conversation, which is fantastic. But it's not in line with the rest of the country either.
Yeah.
So, having all the people who represent everybody else in the country in one place, it really keeps them out of touch with what the rest of the country...
With their own constituents.
With their own constituents. So if you started moving the offices out, right? I mean, I met a guy when I started at the agency. He was from Kentucky, and he was so different. I mean, it was just fantastic to meet him and talk to him. And he had come from a different sector in Kentucky, and now he was there. And I thought, but it was a big challenge for him to move, because he was moving his wife, who had been a teacher. They had been established, right? And they had to move all the way to DC. Like, if you take these government offices and you put them in different places around the country, how many more people might have the opportunity, right? Because a lot of people are tandem. A lot of people are taking their spouse, right? So how many more people might have the opportunity? How much more diverse could the government workforce be, right? How many more diverse ideas could we add to the pot?
So fresh, so new.